Hello, game driven enthusiast. Today we're going to review a game called Scramble. It's a word game and it may remind you of a game called Boggle, but it's played a little differently, has a few special rules, so we're going to go through that game. I will create a game with my opponent here, a standard Scrabble game. 7 days. And pick that game up. You'll see I already have several games going. This is one of my favorite games on the site. Grab that game. So if we look at the rules in Scramble, it does again look like a rack of tiles, a rack of dice, I should say, lettered dice. And the standard game is a 6x6 rack. And you'll notice that there's one tile random at the beginning of the rack that is blue, and that is a doubling tile, and you definitely actually not a doubling tile, but a bonus tile that ends up giving you 10 points in addition to your normal score on any word. So you're definitely encouraged to use it. And the way this is played is you end up in a game with two separate racks. So basically, there's a rack one that is shuffled. You play 10 moves on that, five for each player. And then you switch over to the second rack and you each play 5 moves on that rack. And then that's the game. The game is a total of 20 moves. And your goal is to kind of do a word search with contiguous die to form the longest word you can and hopefully get as many bonus points as you can with letters that range from 1 to 8 points based on their dots here. We'll talk about that in a sec. And outscore your opponent in 20 moves. So here are the dice values. This should look familiar if you've played Gold Letter, of these more common letters being worth 1 point. Then we go to 2, 4, and 8, blue, black, and red. And then we have this blue die. If you use the blue die in your word, you get a bonus 10 points. And every letter that you use past 4, so 5 letter words and beyond, each get 5 points for each additional letter. So 5 points for 5, 10 points for 6, and so forth. So it isn't mandatory that you use the blue die, and in fact, you will find sometimes it's difficult to use the blue die, and you just need a word that is 2 letters longer than one with a blue die to kind of match the same score. So it doesn't double the entire score to where you're never going to use anything but the blue die, but it does give you an incentive to try to use it. So this is a typical 6x6 board. The preferences to this game are very minor. You can just change from the wood to the metal rack, which I will do. Save that. And the different types here just have to do with the board size. So I can play on a 5x5 board, which is kind of ideal. The 6x6 has more dice, and definitely you can form longer words. And then the 4x4, which is a kind of a fun challenge because you've got so few tiles here to choose from that you really have to get creative, and it will stretch your verbal abilities, no doubt. But it's kind of a challenge, so it's kind of fun too. So we're going to start off with the standard version, mostly talk about the controls. You have seen this sort of thing if you've played Elimination, which also uses this kind of zigzag pattern to try to connect letters. So I will save my changes here, save, and then go to the queue and look at our board. Now I mentioned that there are 2 racks. So you see in our scoring section that rack 1 is what we're on. And if we want to switch, we can click this. That's going to be rack 2. We'll get to that later. I can't play on it yet, but it is just a way to distinguish the scores here. So I see A is the die that is blue, and so I'm definitely going to start looking around this die to see if I can spell something. You know, looks like something like, well, bar is right there. Mars. Let's see. Let's try to spell a word that is somewhat modest. We'll spell veal here, and you'll notice as I'm clicking the die, the word is assembling underneath here. And if I click it at any point, it'll go ahead and check what that score will be. It'll do the scoring for me. And it says, well, you've got a V that's 8 points plus one plus one plus one. That's 11 points. And then because you use the blue die, you get another 10. And so if I were to submit this, I would get 21 points. So that tells me that. And I can continue to just try other words and see if I can improve upon that score. I mentioned that uh, you may find a longer word that doesn't include that A, so don't feel compelled that I have to use the A. I also love to look for S's, ERs. So I see LE. I see that that's kind of a way to extend my word. So sometimes I'll look for that combination as well. Arms is here. Uh, you know, don't see anything to it. Also, the Q, notice that the Q always has a U already with it. So, for example, squat or squad. So, squat here is worth 17 points. That's not using the bonus, but still a pretty good 5-letter word. Or squad, that's also in here. And that's going to give me similar points, 17. So that's how you assemble a word. Let's go ahead and play our veal word. And when we submit that, it appears in this list here, 21 points, adds it to my value. I also, in the future, you'll see there's a little star here. That just means I've used the blue tile. I can click on that and review how that was scored, especially if I'm game driven here and I want to see how did my opponent score those points. I can click on that and see how those were scored. And then do my own word. I'm going to spell Blair. Also 21 points. Longer word, but didn't have a V in it. And so then when I come back to refresh mine, I see word 1, word 2. This continues until word 10. And then at word 10, we're going to switch over to the second rack. And on the second rack, I get to, if I'm the second player as she is, I get to do the first word on the second rack. And that kind of evens out the advantage of going first. So the person who picks up the game is going to go first in the first rack. The person who goes second will go first in the second rack. So they'll end up having 2 turns in a row. The 10th turn on the first rack and then the 11th turn on the second rack. I have a couple games that are kind of in progress here. This one you see I'm already up to 18 moves. So let's choose this one. And you can see we are on the second rack already. So this was the first rack. We used this is a 5x5. And there are our 10 words. And then here's rack 2 when we started that. And you'll see that word number 11 started on rack 2. Also, you can click this history button, which actually goes through every single word and puts them player 1, player 2, and adds them all up for you. So that's kind of nice. Now, of course, you can't play a word on the same rack that's already been played. So if I tried to go back to the game that I'm playing against Game Driven and I've tried to play BL, BLARE again, and submit that, Blair has already been played. Or even if I don't submit it, but just try to test the score, it does tell me before it'll allow me to submit. Also, if I spell a word incorrectly or create a word that doesn't exist, uh, oops, Hebl, it just tells me it's not a word. So it's checking all times. Over here, your appliances, you have the little X, which just removes any part of the play that you may be on. So that's kind of an undo. And then you have the dictionary search if you choose to use our Scrabble dictionary to look up a word. And then you have a pass. You can pass on your turn. That's if you really just can't spell any word. You have to use at least 3 letters. So if you can't spell a 3-letter word, you will have to pass. That's not a desirable option as you only get a 0 point score there. So that's Scramble. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's definitely a little bit slower paced game than, let's say, Elimination, where you do all of your moves in one turn. But it is a very creative use of our dictionary and of the word games. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the site.